Generations before people like Dick Cheney and Donald Rumsfeld and Alberto Gonzales represented political lightning rods in America, there was former Defense Secretary Robert McNamara, the defining lightning rod of the Vietnam era in this country. Mr. McNamara died yesterday at his home in Washington. He, of course, was reviled during the Kennedy and Johnson administrations for orchestrating the escalation of the Vietnam War, which killed 58,000 Americans and millions of Vietnamese and Cambodians and Laotians. McNamara was reviled in later years when it was revealed that he continued to promote and plan the war even after he had personally concluded as early as 1965 that the war could not be won militarily. He left office in 1968 and then sat by silently while the war went on for 7 more years. Late in life, McNamara publicly agonized about the decisions he'd made about the war, most famously in Errol Morris's documentary, The Fog of War. Against that backdrop, the printed response to Mr. McNamara's death by the great war correspondent Joe Galloway has caused a stir. Under the headline, "Reading an Obit with Great Pleasure," Mr. Galloway writes, quote, "The aptly named Robert Strange McNamara has finally shuffled off to join LBJ and Dick Nixon in the 7th level of hell." That's how it starts. Mr. Galloway then recounts the story of a ferry boat trip that Mr. McNamara took to Martha's Vineyard in 1972. As he tells it, having a drink in the ferry boat's bar, Mr. McNamara was approached by a man who, as it happened, was a local artist. The artist, quote, told McNamara there was a radio phone call for him on the bridge. McNamara set down his drink and stepped outside. The artist immediately grabbed him, wrestled him to the railing, and pushed him over the side. This is not a metaphor. Somebody actually apparently tried to throw Robert McNamara overboard. Joining us now is Paul Hendrickson, a University of Pennsylvania professor who uncovered the McNamara ferry boat story and writes about it in his book, The Living and the Dead, Robert McNamara and 5 Lives of a Lost War. Professor Hendrickson, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Rachel.
Did Joe Galloway accurately recount this story of what happened on that ferry to Martha's Vineyard?
Yes, absolutely, for all intents and purposes. You know, I think McNamara's position just hanging at that bar in kind of a slouched, relaxed way, this is what the artist told me when I went to find him. He said that alone drove him crazy. The artist saw him from about 20 feet away in this lunchroom, and he looked at McNamara, and all of that anger about the Vietnam War came up, and here was this guy going over to the vineyard for his weekend holiday in his sporting togs, and this kind of murderous rage began crawling up his throat. And as the artist said to me, I'm an artist, I work in immediate context. And so he went over and said, Mr. McNamara, you have a phone call, please follow me. And they got outside in the darkness, and he got McNamara by the collar and the belt buckle and tried to throw him over. There weren't any words between them, and except McNamara said, oh my God, no. I mean, it seemed to me, Rachel, that was the Vietnam War, that 45 seconds of struggle right there at the railing.
Could he have killed him?
Oh, absolutely, because it's a 7-mile passage in dark waters. He would have been sucked under the boat. Or the fall from the ferry. It's a pretty big boat. The waves would have taken him under. You know, there's always been, for all of his brilliance and masterminding, there was always a naive quality of McNamara, which I could say I almost liked. So when the artist said to him, please follow me, the artist later said to me, I'm an artist, I work in immediate context. Even as I was walking over, I did not know what I was going to say to the guy. And what came out of his mouth was, Mr. McNamara, you have a phone call, please follow me. The artist, I spent a good deal of time trying to find him, and I guess I was working in my own immediate context. I flew up to Martha's Vineyard without having called him, and I found where he was, and I went to his studio, and I knocked on his door, and there he was. What kind of blind, stupid luck was that? And I said, I can't go on with this story unless you're willing to talk to me. And he was.
University of Pennsylvania professor Paul Hendrickson giving us yet more reason to read The Living and the Dead, Robert McNamara and 5 Lives of a Lost War, for tracking down that gentleman, for being able to confirm that story, and for adding this to what we know about Robert McNamara's strange and tragic life. Thank you very much for your time tonight, sir.
Thank you.